Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to our fourth webinar of this series. I am Amnet Shiuna, Director at the National Library of Maldives. I will be the host for today. Before we go further, I would like to give few housekeeping announcements. Duration of this webinar is 1 hour and this meeting is being recorded. All participants, please mute your mics and off cameras during the presentation to avoid distractions. We will put a link in the chat to mark the attendance. Please fill the attendance form before and the end of this session. We will post the evaluation form. E-certificate will be sent to those who completes the evaluation form. The evaluation form will be posted in the chat box at the end of the presentation, end of the last presentation. Many thanks to Dr. Gina for all the kind help given to the National Library to make this webinar series happen. Dr. Gina is an independent researcher from Singapore. Today's webinar includes 2 presentations by 3 super presenters. We welcome 2 to 3 questions from the audience at the end of each presentation. Topic for today's webinar is Engaged Libraries, Build Communities. These stories are from Malaysia and Indonesia. Libraries bring, as you all know, libraries bring people together. They create community and they also create mini communities, everything from book groups to writing circles, even to new citizen groups to linguistic or discussion groups. Our first presentation will be given by Ms. Salina Haji Zawawi. Ms. Salina is currently the head of the library services sector at State Library of Sarawak or Malaysia. She has more than 15 years working experience as librarian. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science honors and master's in library and information science from International Islamic University, Malaysia. She has written several articles and presented papers at local, international, and national conferences. Her areas of interests are in sustainable development, planning and management of information services, information literacy. She is currently the coordinator for awareness and advocacy initiatives of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and Sustainable Sarawak. Without any further ado, I request Ms. Salina to give the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Shuna. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon to all my colleagues, Dr. Ida Priyanto, Ms. Fina Chahya, and all my new colleagues from Maldives. Okay, let me share my presentations. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the organizer for giving us the opportunity to talk, to deliberate on our paper entitled Local Content Enrichment by Young Researchers and Talents for Cultural Heritage Sustainability. This paper was presented earlier during the International Knowledge Conference 2021 in Sarawak. So let me share this. This is the map of Malaysia. This is Sarawak. Malaysia, basically, we have 13 states, and Sarawak is in the Borneo Island, and our neighboring countries are Indonesia, the Kalimantan side, and Brunei Darussalam. Sarawak State Library, or in Malay we call Pustaka Negeri Sarawak. We are basically the state and depository for the state and the state library and State Depository for Sarawak. And our vision is to be the reservoir and fountain of information and knowledge to the state. And our mission is to provide access of information, resources, and to preserve Sarawak's intellectual heritage. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, our function is a library and state depository. We established in 2000, and now we are 21 years in service, and our manpower is about 199 staff with 3 campuses in northern region, central region, as well as in the southern region of Sarawak. Okay, the paper here, I try to highlight the paper on the problem statement, the issue of the scarcity of local content creation compared to the external publications and how we want to tackle the issue. Okay, before I go further on this, we have to understand what does local content mean. As defined by Abdul Wahid Khan, the Assistant Director General for Communication and Information, UNESCO, local content is basically an expression and communication of communities locally generated, owned, and adapted knowledge and experience that is relevant to the community situations. In a knowledge management perspective, it is related to the idea of knowledge generation, dissemination, and utilization. And of course, it is a multidisciplinary knowledge where experience generated or created by the community for the use and benefits of beneficiaries and shareable to others. Meaning here it is our own knowledge that is created based on our own understanding and perspective. This is the local content. So if we see that under the legal deposits ordinance, I believe that most of the libraries in the world, they have practiced this legal deposit ordinances that requires any publishers or publications, in the case of Sarawak, any publications, whether printed or non-printed in Sarawak, we have to deposit the material to the library, to the state library. And seeing from 2000 to 2020, we see that we have a very little number of collections on Sarawak, or the publications that have been done in Sarawak. We have just 10,049 titles with 43,050 totals of collections that consist of books, serials, newspapers, ephemeral theses, working papers, Sarawak Government Gazette, and of course non-printed publications. Here we can see that how sad, in terms of the scarcity of information or the scarcity of our local content creations itself compared to other publications produced outside Sarawak in this scenario. Okay, we see how about other countries in comparisons to us in Sarawak. I think this problem is very much a universal problem, especially in the countries like in the ASEAN countries, Southeast Asia countries. And we see in China, for instance, this is the statistic from in 2015 alone, we see nearly 500,000 of publications in a year. And you can see the number of these countries in the list, they produce much more collections, much more publications in terms of books, etc. if we compare to, for instance, in Sarawak. And this is the things that we try to highlight, how the local content enrichment is not that good, particularly in Malaysia, in Sarawak, and how we, the Sarawak State Library, try to tackle this problem. And if we see under the IFLA, we see that IFLA has clearly outlined what the library can do in response to the SDG Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, because Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations is we considered as Global Agenda 2030, and in this Global Agenda 2030, it has 17 goals, from goals number 1 to goals number 17, and we hope that by 2030 that we can achieve all these goals. And in particular, library, if you can see that libraries, IFLA, International Federation of Library Association itself, has already clearly shown that what library can do. And under Sustainable Goals number 17, Sustainable Cities and Communities, we see that documentation and preservation of cultural heritage for future generations is one primary thing that the library has to do. Okay, you see that my paper is concerning the local enrichment by young researchers and young talents in response to preserve the cultural heritage preservation. So, or we can say that in terms of cultural heritage sustainability. So in the first place, we have to define what is cultural heritage. Cultural heritage is an expression of the ways of living developed by a community and passed on from generation to generation, including customs, practices, places, objects, artistic expressions, and values. Cultural heritage is often expressed as either intangible, for instance, in terms of the oral traditions, in terms of rituals, or tangible cultural heritage, such as we can see in our monuments, our paintings, or our manuscripts. So this is the definitions of cultural heritage given by ICOMOS. And for Sarawak State Library, we are very happy to share that what are the initiatives taken to address the scarcity of local content creations, okay, for cultural heritage sustainability. One is we do pertandingan warisan budaya tempatan. Pertandingan warisan budaya tempatan, if we translate it into English, it means that the local content creation competition. So these local content creation competitions, we open it to young researchers. Competition on local content enrichment for secondary schools or high school in Sarawak by coming up with local content research. Because here we aims to create or adding value to existing knowledge of local content for knowledge preservation and appreciation. Because we know that we have many resources about some other areas that is not our own areas in terms of the cultural heritage. We have so many books on the foreign publications about others' heritage, but we don't keep our own cultural heritage documentations. That's why, how do we want to enrich it? We do this competition for the high school students in Sarawak. How do? We guide these young researchers in search of information through reliable sources and to plan, collect, analyze, interpret, synthesize, summarize, and record all information that has been gathered to form the completed and comprehensive work. So the facilitators and young researchers are grouped together in a workshop. Okay, the facilitators we are the librarians who work in Sarawak State Library. We are the facilitators, and we group all these young researchers in a workshop, and before they can carry out the research project based on the theme assigned for a year. One research project takes around 5 months to complete, and they have to present before the judges in the competition day. So these young researchers are to work in a group of not more than 4 students, and they have to select their own guidance teacher and obliged to submit the mini thesis of the research project to us and present it in key points format before the judges in the competition day. Let me see previous. Okay. Okay, we train young researchers and embedding them with the research skills such as information literacy, up to research and research writing, up to storing of information in virtual world. All these knowledge and skills are embedded and taught in the following modules because we have 8 modules. Each module, we teach them from module number 1 to module number 8, from information literacy, research writing, referencing and citation, video documentation, oral history, presentation skill, graphic design skills, and cold storage. Okay. Not cold storage, what we call the cloud storage. Okay, teaching methodology. How do we do? Through a two-way communication between the facilitators and young researchers in a 3-day workshop, which translated into lectures, hands-on and practical, role play, exercises, group discussions, and presentations. So these are the themes that covered when we first started in 2008, and then the last that we did this one is in 2019, and because of 2020 we had the pandemic, we had to stop for a while, and then now inshallah in 2022 next year we will commence this competition again. These are all of the themes that covered since 2008. See, from the history, culture and traditions of the Orang Ulu, the indigenous group, up to the early history of local settlements of indigenous in the northern region of Sarawak. Okay, what are the outcomes? We have been able to attract 206 groups of young researchers from various secondary high schools from northern region of Sarawak. And then we have about 150 research compiled, which involve 824 young students. Okay. If you see that why we concentrate on northern region, because here we started in the northern region of Sarawak in Miri, okay, to be particular, and then we start from then. And 2016, a compilation of selected local content PWBT researchers from 2008 to 2015, we compiled it into a book. This is the book. Then we published it in 2015. Then out of this also, we make the heritage matters local content documentation book published, meaning in 2015 we compile all 20 research manuscripts from 20 research teams into this book, and then in 2020 we come up with the heritage matters local content documentation, meaning we put all the module from module 1 until the module number 8 into this heritage matters content. Okay, that is the young researchers, okay? And for the young talents, we did this Sarawakana Carnival. And this Sarawakana Carnival, we started, firstly organized in 2010. And then we had the Smart Partnership Program held in every 2 years with our collaborators. And we have various activities to instill and intensify the love towards unique indigenous knowledge and rich local culture. And of course, the main aim is working toward the creations of documented information resources to add into the local content references in the future. Because this is one of the Pertandingan Bermukun, the dancers, and then we have the local folklore telling competitions with all the kids. This is what we call as a young talents. And then, of course, in doing all these things, we have challenges. First, in terms of the pertandingan on the local content competition, we have a subject matter prioritization. That is our first challenge, because in Sarawak, we have more than 30 multi-ethnic groups. And these multi-ethnic groups, they have various cultures and traditions, and even the languages are not the same. They are different in languages. And we have to prioritize which collections or which knowledge subject matters that we have to put into documentation. That is the first challenge. And then the second one is knowledge holders' limitations. Because once these children, when these young researchers, when they engage themselves in this research, they have to seek the knowledge holders. Yeah, the all generations, because all this knowledge, especially on the traditional heritage thing, it is not documented elsewhere. It, it is not documented elsewhere, and they have to look for these knowledge holders and to see that whether the information is correct or not, reliable or not. And yeah, that is to become the primary source of their information. And in terms of the geographical coverage, in Sarawak, the Sarawak is such a huge state, and not all these people are, staying in one area. It is a very big area, and sometimes these places are mountainous, and it is a deep remote in the forest area. Okay, this is in terms of the geographical coverage. So the lessons learned from here is collaborations is golden, because in library we can't work alone. When we want to do this competition, we have to work with so many collaborators. First, we have to work with the education department. We have to work with the schools. We have to work with the local councils, because when we have the training or the workshop for all these children in those particular area, in Sarawak, we have about 13 divisions. We have to go through the other divisions, and we have to collaborate with this council. Okay. And the second thing, that lessons learned and planning and execution must be on track, because we give all these students, all these young researchers 5 months to complete. And the first thing is they have to follow our workshop. They have to undergo our module, and they have to come out what their research project, okay, what are the areas that they want to cover, and then they have to write up and make kind of thesis, and then they have to come up with the presentations before the judges. So all these things must be on track. Our planning and execution must be on track. Okay. Benefits of local content enrichment enhancements to cultural heritage sustainability. First, improving understanding of how important local content enrichment and enhancement to the self-unique appreciation of own identity, and how it could be conveyed and made important to larger targeted audience. Second, it internalizing the importance of local content lies in the fact that it is a tool for documenting, preserving, and dissemination of historical, cultural, and intellectual heritage of a nation. Because heritage is our pride, okay? It is an intellectual pride of a nation. Learning and experiencing the treasures of local content creation in an engaging platform with those who have the same commitment and sentiments to preserve and appreciate indigenous knowledge and culture, as well as it is strengthening and improving skills, knowledge, and positive values derived from the engagements. Okay, I know that time is very sensitive here, and I understand that the organizer gave me just about 25 minutes, and before I end my presentation, I would like to share the video of how the local content creations basically address in terms of the competition that we had as well in the Sarawakiana festival. Okay, enjoy this video. Okay, that is basically what we did for our Pertandingan Warisan Budaya Tempatan and Sarawakana Festival, and that shows that one of the bengkels that we have to do in divisions, in some part of the divisions in Sarawak, meaning there are some more other bengkels as well that we have to do. At least for that 5 months time, we have to do about 5 to 6 bengkels or workshops, or workshops for the students. Okay, I think that's all from me. And over back to Ms. Shona. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Salina, for the insightful and very exciting presentation. I'm overwhelmed with the presentation, yes. Any questions for Ms. Salina from the audience? If no question, I want to ask you one. How do you mobilize the funding for these activities?
Okay. First and foremost, of course, we do have funding from the state itself, but that one is not really sufficient. So most of the funding is coming from all the collaborators. Because, for instance, when we do in schools, then, you know, the schools are the one who help us in terms of giving the, you know, for the beverages, you know, the refreshment for the students and that kind of thing. And in terms of facilitating students with all this workshop, that one is under us, Pustaka, under us, the State Library. And that's why I mentioned here that collaboration is a very, very, you know, precious in this kind of things. And when we go to see because when these students, when they embark in this research, when they have to go to the field work and to see the knowledge holders to, you know, gain what themes, that is by their own pocket money. That one is the school has to spend for them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Our next presenters are from Indonesia, Dr. Ida Fajar Priyanto and Miss Fitrina. Dr. Ida is a graduate is with the Graduate School of Library and Information Management, Gadjah Mada University, Indonesia. He holds a PhD in Information Science from the University of North Texas, USA, and an MA in Information Science, Loughborough University Technology from UK. He serves as Chair, Library Council of the State, Yogyakarta, Advisor, Indonesian Academic Library Association, Advisor, Indonesian School Library Association, and Examiner, UITM, Malaysia. Dr. Ida has many publications on his credit, and the next presenter, Ms. Fitrina, is a teaching assistant at the Graduate School of Library and Information Management, Gadjah Mada University, Yogyakarta, and also serves as a consultant with Skillsoft Singapore. She holds an MA in Information Management from the Gadjah Mada University. Now, Fitrina has several papers on her credit as well. I kindly request Dr. Ida to give the presentation. Follows the Miss Fitrina's presentation. Dr. Ida?
Thank you very much. I feel glad here. Thank you, Amina, and also Gina, and also Zul, and the team in Maldives. It's really nice to see you all, and this is the first time for me to present any slide, any presentation in Maldives. Salina and I have been friends for 17 years already. Yeah, I met her in the United States instead of in Sarawak. That's well, our neighbor, but we met somewhere else. Right. I will speak for 10 minutes, and then Fitrina will continue, maybe 15 minutes. Right. Sorry if I speak longer than 10 minutes, maybe 12. Right. Right. First, I'd like to share with you. I give the title of my presentation is Empowering the Community. First, I'd like to tell you about Indonesia. So, if people want to know about Indonesia, they will remember Borobudur. Borobudur is the biggest temple in the world, a Buddhist temple. But I live in Kota Gede. Kota Gede is the first Islamic kingdom in the old days, about 500 years ago. And then I work in Gajah Mada University. Gajah Mada was the name of the prime minister in Majapahit kingdom, actually. So we call Gajah Mada. And then below is Gajah Mada University Library, where I also I was in charge from 2002 until 2011, 12, right, 10 years to be the head of the library. That was so long time. Right. In Indonesia, we have lots of libraries because we have we are the fourth biggest population in the world. About 271 million people live in Indonesia, and also out of those numbers of the libraries, 32 provincials, and then 311 regency and 1,250 rural public libraries have held community empowerment programs. So this is really nationwide programs that was started about 10 years ago. So at the beginning of the story was actually I was invited actually by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Seoul, and we talk about the possibilities of helping the empowerment of the communities through the libraries. And then the following year, they visited Yogyakarta, and we talked longer with also the deputy of the National Library also visited Yogyakarta. But then I left this discussion until finally in 2011, the Coca-Cola Foundation started and run the program, what we call social inclusion program, in which many libraries are invited to take part, and they were trained in a program called Perpus Seru. Perpus is the library, abbreviated. Perpus is usually perpustakaan, meaning library. And Seru is excitement. So the excitement of the library. This program held by Coca-Cola Foundation in Indonesia and supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they did train the librarians to help the community to develop their living standard. So the program of Perpus Seru is very much helpful for the librarians in Indonesia, especially the public librarians. And I was so lucky to meet some of them in some of the activities. And then since 2011, we had activities from activities for children until activities for people, the community, and they were held in many places. But actually, besides we have Perpus Seru, we have a tradition which is called Gotong Royong. Gotong Royong is actually meaning helping one another, especially in group. This is the what you call the social activities that we always do in Indonesia. So we always help people when they in need, and this is also reflected in the social inclusion program among the librarians. So this is an example of the gotong royong, gotong royong, because this is actually the night watch. People usually stay here the night to take care of as a security guard, So every night there are people here to work as a security officer in the area. But then this area, this night watch was transformed into a library as well. So in the morning, during the holidays, children can study here. There is also internet access here. And then at night, people, the adult, stay here to have a security program. So this is a good way to transform the place. I also would like to thank to Agong, who is actually attending this conference. This webinar, joining here. He is the one who I know so well because he helped me to take to the places where I haven't been there, some rural areas. So librarians also do gotong royong during the pandemic time. For example, like this. So this is the Academic Library Association in Jakarta. They help the needy people because of the closing of their activities because they couldn't go anywhere. So the librarians help the people, the needy people, and they get help with small donation from the librarians. But actually, gotong royong and perpustaru can mean communities empowerment. So this is an example of the bookmark that the community produce in the library. They do this. But also actually the librarians, after having the perpustaru program, training program, they also try to make use of the books in the library and then also practice helping the community to do, for example, batik painting, and then how to make simple bags and so on. So this is a good practice that the library is not only for reading, but also for doing activities so that the community can get a benefit. But this is how we can do, the librarians can do, especially in the rural areas. I think that is the point that I would like to start the beginning of our story. And then we will invite Fina. I will invite Fina to tell the story of 3 places. First is in Surabaya, and then also next is in Yogyakarta, where Agung as a librarian works, and then the other is in Borneo. We have a librarian in Borneo, Central Borneo, who will also we would like to share with you what the activities in Borneo libraries. Fina?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ida. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Fitrina, and today I'd like to share the librarians' activities in Indonesia. So if you don't know about Indonesia, Indonesia is located in Southeast Asia and the largest emerging country, and it's being known the world for most populous country. So it consists of 17,000 islands with 1,300 ethnic groups, and we have more than 700 local languages. So I'll share with you the example of engagement of library engagement Indonesia in 3 different places. First in Surabaya, second in Jakarta, and the last in Borneo Kalimantan. So I'm gonna start with the librarians activities in Surabaya. So for your information, Surabaya is the second largest city after Jakarta. And in this part, I'm gonna talk about how the librarians approach the community in big city. So one of the library goals is to strengthen the literacy and community welfare. So empowerment means efforts to improve the quality of life. And one of the way to empowering the community is the librarians can walk out from the library, approaching the community. So there is an academic librarians from Surabaya, has different way approaching the community by way of directly go to the villages or kampung. Not only the librarians, but also involve the students in these events. So they have several programs for the community, and these programs is actually started in early pandemic. So both the librarians and also the students doing tutoring kids who cannot go to school and can meet their teacher and also their classmates. As we can see on the slides, the majority of the community participants are the housewives. So that's why assistance and empowerment efforts are needed to support and develop for the potential of housewives in social and economic terms. Therefore, a community empowerment activities designed for housewives with the objective that must be achieved. So these are the examples of the products. There are foods and then desserts and also drinks. So the librarians helping to develop the business of the community by helping to register their restaurant to food applications. So the community can sell their products through online applications. As we all know, this day ordering food, it's so easy in Indonesia. So the purpose of this program is to improve the community income. And before they sell their products through online applications, they usually sell these products traditionally. Pandemic doesn't mean that the librarians shouldn't just stay at home and not to be creative. Instead, they continue to approach the community directly. However, it is opposite with the big city. While in Gunung Kidul, Jakarta, the librarians trying to inviting the community to come to the library. So actually in the rural public library, the lack of resources and also human resources. And in this library was earlier so messy, but now this library has developed and won several awards over the years for their efforts. And people come as a reference. And it is so common in rural areas that the community holds various activities in the community hall meetings. For example, the librarians involve the community in their activities, just like on this picture. So there is an event held in library and the community hall meetings in the same time. On the other hand, the goals of the library is facilitate activities to respond the community needs and social inclusion as public library. Oops. So these are some activities holds in public library. So basically the librarians has various activities, but since pandemic, the librarians split the activities into several rural public libraries to avoid the crowds. So even during the pandemic, the librarians become more productive and active. They hold some activities such training, and then they have batik making activities, and then handicraft making, cooking class, and so on. And these are the community who learn batik. And these are example of batik. So for each region, we'll have different patterns. And this is also the example of the products of community with support of banana. I mean, with support with the librarians. They have chips, for example, banana chips, and then spinach chips, and other handicrafts. So from the train that held in library, the community can actually produce in their home. Even more during pandemic, the librarians teach how to sell the products through online market. So they will have more customers. The interesting scenes exist in the backyard of the library, because at these backyards, the librarians and the community plants grow to make chips. And although the yard is so limited in size, but they still can grow the plants. And also the librarians prepare traditional drinks or jamu for the library visitors. So, okay, now let's move on the last regions. Is in Borneo Kalimantan. So in this library in Borneo, they also have so many activities carried out in library, such as writing class, English class, cooking class, sewing class, and also beauty class. So these are example of activities and the products which sell in exhibition inside and outside of library. And these also the other examples. And some of the activities are reported in local newspaper about the development and about the development and the empowerment in the public library and rural public library. So it is also stated that several libraries has developed, and because of the librarians' training and supervisions, they can reduce the information poverty. So it means that libraries are good for the community and they can learn anything. Meanwhile, there is some various issues to the middle manager when the middle manager are not always agree with the librarian's idea. So it is often to the librarians cannot express their ideas to the middle manager. So to solve that problem, the librarian usually go to the library director instead of talking to the middle managers. And then the middle manager will be joined of agree about the librarian ideas. So in conclusion, a librarian can play a role to develop the library and also the community. And they can have a bigger role for their community if the librarian has more ideas. And in order to show that librarians can help the community, librarians should hold tourist activities, so the community can get benefits. But the key is the librarians' creativity and willingness to support the community's developments. So I think that's all that I can share. Thank you. And over to you, Miss Yuna.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ida and Miss Fina. Thank you very much. And we open the floor for audience for questions. Any questions for Dr. Ida and Miss Fina? From your presentations, I noticed that collaborative work is very much needed, and it's really supportive. So now libraries are much more than books, but the form has changed, right?
Yeah, right.
Any questions? If no questions from the audience, I may ask even Dr. Ida, how do you empower the housewife, or how do you convince them to come and join your programs? What's the
Right. Usually we have, librarians are not always seen as capable persons, but considering that problem, so purposeful is the way we try to make the librarians feel confidence to ensure and to meet people. So we try to train the librarians to be confident, and especially how they speak, how they communicate to the public, to the community. So that is the first point. And then the second is that we usually invite them to come to the library, but not only from our side, but we collaborate with also the head of the village, for example. We inform them about the activity, so that the head of the village also help in inviting or informing the community to come to the library. So this sort of collaboration between the head of the villages and also the librarians, also the head of the libraries, enable the housewives, also the just people, also young people, come to the library to practice just anything that we can offer. So that is the good side. Is the point is the collaboration among some of the decision makers.
Very interesting presentation. Yeah. So we can have many activities in the library, not just reading, right? But anything with information.
Right. Yeah. In collaboration.
Yeah, Ms. Shona, maybe I can add some more on Dr. Ida's point. The same things happen in Sarawak in Malaysia, in Sarawak in particular, when we had these kind of collaborations to the villages. What is important is we try to make a good connection, the networking, the community leaders, because the community leaders is in this village, they are kind of, the king of that village. When we explain to them what are the activities that is of benefit to them, ensure indeed these community leaders, convey the message to all these villages, and the villages are willingly to come, even at their own expense. Yeah, that is the I think the beauty part of working as a librarian, yeah, I like the idea of Dr. Ida saying that it will build confidence in librarian, yeah, so that they can, once they have the confidence and they can communicate with the people, the community, then yeah, it brings people coming a lot to the library. Yeah. Again, collaboration is the golden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. This is the very end of the webinar. Thank you, audience. Once again, I would like to thank Dr. Gina for making this webinar to happen, and many more thanks to the very knowledgeable and super and amazing presenters, Miss Salina, Dr. Ida, and Miss Fina. Thank you very much.